All right, perfect. So say you bought a piece of furniture from a store. You get not only a token of ownership, but you get a model of the piece of furniture to use in applicable metaverses that would allow that. They're already pretty far along with that idea on Ethereum, and I think they have a little bit of a venture into BSC. But that's just one of many. Now you have a model in the metaverse that you can use, also doubling as what you just said, proof of ownership. And not too long ago, I was at NFT NYC and I spoke on this topic. I spoke on, let me find the exact name because it was a mess of a name. It was pretty much how utility NFTs in specific will impact upcoming enterprises. I think it was very future oriented. Here it is. All right. It was how utility NFTs have transformed respective marketplace sectors, which was an interesting topic to have at NFT NYC with only 25 minutes. But what we spoke on really was that bonds, NFTs as bonds, where they do pretty phenomenally in that aspect, deeds of ownership for a house, a typical security, synthetic assets. And that's one of my favorites is synthetic assets, just taking pretty much a stock and putting it on the blockchain. Because you can do some interesting things with KYC that way. And then we have post hoc utility, which is like that's what my company does, but I'm not the only one who does it at all, so I won't claim ownership of the idea of taking an NFT, staking it, and giving something out in reward. That's not at all a new idea. To Cardano it is, yeah. But I'm trying to think of, I have their names up right now. I'm trying to think of what Elmer said. He was one of the speakers. He had a different idea. Either way, an NFT being what it is, you can use for almost anything with because almost everything in the real world is unique in some way, shape, or form. And if it isn't, we try to make it that way so we can track it. But the best ones I saw that I liked the most was one being just a savings bond, because I thought that was a fantastic idea to go about bonds. And the second being what I referred to earlier, which was what you said, Chris, not too long ago, proof of ownership that can be tracked on and on. And then from there, you can add things like the model that one company did for their metaverses.
Yeah. And similarly, if it's not a piece of furniture, if it's a piece of clothing, you could have your avatar wearing your Louis Vuitton, like carrying your little Louis Vuitton bag or whatever. So all those things I think are pretty clear, but I'm sure that we're just still scratching the surface of it. And
one of the problems that we're still having is the cross-platform things. But you might be doing all of this on Cardano, but how you transfer that over to Ethereum, for instance?
You're going to have an issue with oracles when you try to do that if you go the oracle route. With Ethereum, you might be able to pull it off with Milkomeda. I was just listening to their Twitter space, where they have a big space today that BiFi was a part of. And they just mentioned how they're planning to have an implementation to where one-to-one swaps across from the EVM to the Cardano side, at least information way, it seemed, will be possible. So I could just take something and put it on the Cardano chain. It seems like they're wrapping it in a way, which seems wise, pretty straightforward. But as far as that goes, you just have to make sure, like let's say I have, I'm forgetting the name of a popular project, but they just make assets. They're not making a game. They make like swords that other games could use. As long as I keep those values as just values, like integers, it's up to the developer to do what they want with it. And that should be cross-chain compatible inherently, just as metadata. Like if I say attack damage equals 5, that should translate pretty easily once you wrap the token. But then if I'm a developer making a game and I say, whoa, that's way too weak for my game, we have attack values that start at 100, I could just have it on my end multiply that 5 that he gave me. So the developer can do any balancing that he needs with the values, like post hoc in a way. But as far as getting it to the developer across those chains, it seems like you could wrap it, which seems like a good idea. I don't know. It's solid. I feel like there's a more efficient way than wrapping it as a new token, but that's what I saw so far.
Abraham, were you about to say something? You had your hand raised, a few minutes ago.
Oh, yeah, sure. I guess I'll just add on to the last point that Jack made. Well, two things in my mind when it comes to cross-system, cross-game compatibility. I feel like all these sidechains really need is the asset ID. That for maximum compatibility, minimal reliance should be made on the actual metadata, since it can't change. Unless, of course, some universal standard comes up, which I think is being worked on for an agreed upon method for referencing external metadata. But secondly, as far as like how we're going to make it appealing to Ethereum, one point might be, who cares what Ethereum is doing? I mean, in my mind, every Ethereum customer is just a future Cardano customer, and I don't understand the point of trying to move users over to that system.
Especially with Ethereum going proof of stake, I could see that. Like in the past, I would say maybe not, because Ethereum has that pull to it. But now that it's going to be proof of stake, that could change a lot, and essentially makes them much more similar chains. And I don't know about you guys, I think Abraham might agree with me, but I'm not a fan of the EVM in and of itself, fundamentally. So hopefully people will wise up to that fact. Most of the issues that we've had with big hacks and big money losses are just silly things with the EVM. So yeah, no, I do think we could see a large exodus from Ethereum in the future. It really depends. If this proof of stake doesn't go as they plan, then yeah, people will start looking. The only problem is people will probably go to Solana first, because nowadays, since like post 2017, people with crypto are so much more complacent. Back in the day, no one would stand for Solana. It would be like how XRP got its first reception, but now it's very popular. So
What
that's
we
the only
really
sad
need,
part.
what we really need is an app or two that has obvious mainstream appeal and a super easy onboarding process.
Yeah, a
Whereas
killer app.
like there's even music apps that are not really integrating into their UI. A presupposition that somebody might want to use it that doesn't know what a crypto wallet is. So we need some sort of super easy interstitial wallet creation onboarding step that everybody can use. But if somebody were to integrate Zoom with token gating, then that entity would be able to basically onboard as a side effect to Cardano their main target audience, which would be all Zoom business users, not Cardano users. That's the scope proposal that I submitted to Catalyst Swarm, but they didn't have the money for it. With the particular webhooks and API calls that you could make, that Zoom makes available, it's a perfect tool for an automatic attendance reward system, because you can not only track there's some like nifty things you have to do with the token, like mapping it to users, but you can not only detect who attended, but whether they attended for a significant amount of time. And I know Catalyst Swarm, and I'm sure there are some others, at least within the Cardano community, that like kind of sort of have an attendance reward system, but it's more manual. It's not really scalable.
Yeah, no, that would be great for that, especially.
You guys are going to be around a while, right?
I think so.
I won't be. That's what I mentioned earlier. I have a call coming up shortly.
Sure.
But I did just want to drop in, and I'll be at the next one most likely.
I got to bounce. I'm meeting my dev at a pizza place right down the street, but we'll come right back.
Oh, there you go. That sounds like fun. Enjoy that.
Great. Good to see you, Abraham.
See you, Abraham.
What do you guys think about in terms of token gating? Is anyone looking to do or has already begun projects where they're connecting, they're creating connectors for social media platforms to do token gating, whether it be something like Instagram, like the main ones, Facebook, Instagram, so that the tokens, that using this concept of really getting people jazzed up in other worlds that are very standard and sort of pedestrian at this point, that are already on all these other platforms, to get them into the world of blockchain by token gating. Has anybody started those kind of projects yet? Whether it's
we can do that. We can do that. So, so the idea, one of the components of the idea behind the Zoom integration was, once you had a token, the minting service that would listen to your Zoom account would need to maintain a registry mapping these asset IDs to people's Zoom user profiles. So according to how my B2B, utility as a service app is supposed to function, the quote consequence of a gate passing could be a Zoom OAuth pop-up. So in terms of like incentivizing or raising the perceived value of a token by making it interactable with your social media profiles, the consequence of a gate passing, once you validate this or that token, could be an OAuth for Twitter.
Right. So also, what about website platforms like Shopify, Squarespace, self-hosted WordPress sites?
That is our absolute next priority, to start building out like WooCommerce plugins and apps for the Shopify extension marketplace.
Right. Abraham, what's the name of your company again?
Talismo.
Can you drop it into the chat, please, before you go to have your pizza?
Yeah.
Oh, I see. Talismo. Thank you.
And at this point, version one of a gate's abilities is simply to redirect the user. But that could be great for e-commerce right off the bat, because by mandating that the user visit a specific URL, just with that ability, if you're using Shopify or Magento or whatever, you can lead people to a preloaded cart and apply discount codes, which optionally could be one-time use. Right. And if a gate condition is not only that a token must be present, but that it must actually be sent, that's a form of payment or redemption, which would then lead to a merchandise.
Right, and this is very appropriate for the conversation I brought up in the beginning, is brainstorming around what to talk about with NFTs with major brands. And now we're getting into, this is really innovative stuff in terms of the way that they could think about the NFTs being integrated within the e-commerce platforms that they are on, whether they're Salesforce Commerce Cloud or Oracle ATG or what have you. So this is all really good stuff.
Yeah, you could set up something pretty clever just with the URL redirect feature we plan on launching by the end of October, but it would be just extraordinarily useful if it was integrated into the Shopify UI itself.
Right.
Especially if it took into consideration that it may be exposed to people that have no idea what crypto is, but all the same could benefit vastly and gain some sort of advantage from it, whether they want to set up a login system that doesn't require typing in a password, or a membership subscription service, or anything really.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. No, I think it's very compelling.
Okay, I gotta run. All right, good talk. I hope I come back and you're still here.
Great to see you, Abraham. So once again, from my perspective, my big question is how to create a buzz and to create that viral email sharing of getting people just to brainstorm, 3 sentences. If you had 30 seconds, if you had 5 minutes with executives at some of the biggest luxury brands in the world, what would you want to tell them about NFTs? And why are we asking this? Because we're going to be there all day talking NFTs, Web3 with LVMH companies next week.
If you have 30 seconds or 5 seconds, I would say, how do we make that cross-platform, that your product is actually going to be shown on all the platforms without having to rewrite all the codes and everything and redo everything for each platform.
You mean Zoom Look or?
No, yeah, well, I'm talking about the product. I'm talking about everything because I've been talking to some guys. I've talked to a guy at IKEA in Sweden, and they are really heavily involved in that because they said that, if we're going to put a platform, a metaverse platform in an IKEA metaverse, we are not going to sit and do one for Cardano and one for Ethereum and one for whatever, right? They want to make one, and that is going to be working exactly the same on all the platforms. So there needs to be a streamline in all of that, and I'm part of something called the Metaverse Standard Forum, and which is a group that all are talking about how are we going to make this streamlined. And one of the most interesting things that I've heard is that they want to create it in such a way so it's like an HTML. You create your metaverse and whatever you want to do, and then you go in the metaverse, and then from a platform, let's say like a Google platform, and you just type that in, and you go directly into that metaverse, and you can bring all your NFTs or your tools, your avatars, or whatever it is, into that platform with your wallet and all that kind of stuff. So those are the things that I think is really important, because you can talk about in making NFTs as much as you want, but if your NFT is only valid in one certain platform, then you're kind of stuck.
Jack was saying that Milk Media is making a wrapper for that, a fresh token that'll be able to. But what does that mean? Does that mean that it's got a wrapper? Great, but what about the actual essence that's inside? It's wrapped inside. Is that going to expand into the 3D asset that you're expecting it to? Because
most of the time that's just like a URL or something. Like a lot of the times those metadatas are just plain English or hidden as a script inside. They're plain English inside of a script. It's something you can just grab. I don't imagine that would be hard to do from a development perspective.
Well,
because the
URL,
you just grab that and move it over.
Yeah, that's fine. But what about are there different 3D technologies in use in different 3D metaverses? I mean, there've got to be. I mean, they're not all.
Yeah, that's like an issue with the NFT itself. Yeah, that's like, like let's say you make like a .mdx, but they're using like 3ds or whatever, That's more so just an issue like on a per basis. Like you making the NFT, perhaps you could ship an NFT that has multiple types of models. I don't see why not. But yeah.
It could be FBX. It could be a fairly universal format that's usable in multiple, like FBX.
Yeah, we're gonna have to look into and see. The gaming industry is really ahead of all of this. There's a lot of people in this Metaverse Standard Forum that is coming from NVIDIA, etc., and stuff like that. Other things that was also talked about is actually the telecom community is part of this, because when you start changing, from one platform to the other platform, you're going to have third parties and stuff like that. How is all of that transferred? Also, when you start having that, there's also a breaking point or intrusion point. So, we're talking a little bit in future, but you have to start addressing this in the right at the right end. And you asked me, what would I say to these companies if I meet them and I have 30 seconds? I would say that, what are we going to do in the future about cross-platform? Are we looking into that? Are you guys discussing this? Because your product in one metaverse and you move it over to another one might not look exactly the same. So I'll take this as an example. Martin Antied for IKEA, he said that if I would do a metaverse I have a pillow, for instance, that I'm going to put in the sofa and I'm sitting with my phone, and you can actually look on the phone and you can see, the green pillow is now on the couch in your room. Yeah, will it be the same green if it comes from Ethereum metaverse, or is it going to be another green coming from the Cardano platform, for instance? Those things are very, very important for companies.
That should only rely on the model file, though. Because at the end of the day, the NFT isn't storing the model. These NFTs block sizes are nowhere near that big. They're just storing a reference to the model. So right. The green should stay green, unless the person's computer has some modification to it. But yeah, no, at the end of the day, you know, like that model file is telling the graphics
No,
processor to make that.
you're absolutely right. But the thing here is that there's some people sitting with one certain video card on one machine and another, you know, video card, or that the program is made in Blender, and then the other, you know, and the other one is made in Adobe, you know. So where do we go in there? Those are the discussions that they're having, especially when you're talking about things like clothing and stuff like that. Those are important things to bring up. You
Yeah,
know,
you would have to use like Chris was referring to earlier, an FPX type, or
yeah.
you have to use something, a very global file type, and hope that it's supported, because that's really, you know, that's before even blockchain. That's just an issue with global compatibility. That being said, though, it's the same way that I can import all these different files into Blender, and if I can't, I can download a plugin that can. I don't imagine that would be too big of an issue for developers. You can now make things multi-compatible. If that's too much of an issue, then if we're going to standardize something, we should standardize an open source file type.
Well, they are. If you look into Omniverse, the NVIDIA Omniverse, type it in and go look at it, and it's a free software that you can here I can type it in.
I mean, but like Jack was saying, all that is outside of the of a distributed ledger, right? At the end of the day, the ledger is just not even hosting the entire NFT, just the reference in the ledger. So at the end of the day, all of these compatibility issues are external to whatever the actual NFT is doing.
Yeah, these have been issues for far before crypto was a thing. You know, like I'm trying to play Half-Life 2 and I'm trying to import a model from this game. It's not going to just up and work. Never will. My save files won't work across games. If I try to open a Word document file in a different platform, it might just mess up the whole file.
Yeah.
That's just an issue of file types themselves. That being said, though, we've gotten really good at it these days. Like, for example, a .txt. Linux can open a .txt natively.
Oh, yeah.
Everything can open a .txt. So if we can do that with a file type, because, you know, at the end of the day, the real issue there is reading the file, not making it. So if we can make a file just globally readable, we would just need a new standard.
I'm totally with you, Jack. You and I
It's
understand
doable.
that. Or actually, we are sitting here and we understand that. But Christopher's question was, what would you talk to them about? What would you bring up? I would bring up a thing like that and say that there are solutions for that. You know, make them
we just need to get it rolling.
Yeah, exactly. It's a question that needs to be asked or told.
But those
right?
solutions
and then you say,
those solutions are outside the blockchain, right? So if Christopher goes there and starts talking about file formats and universal standards, they're going to tell him, okay, but where is the blockchain in all of this? Right? I mean, we can talk about file formats on other forums. What is a specific blockchain about this stuff?
True that.
So perhaps, as you say, Eric, the necessity is really to make your stake, no pun intended, but to make your stake in terms of making a decision on what file formats you're going to use that are that universal, like let's say FBX for 3D objects. It's not going to be a 3ds file, it's not going to be OBJ, but it's going to be FBX because it's such a good universal format already. And then just create that as the rule to become the standard, and just basically creating, I think, maybe a council meeting, if you will, of invested players that will be making decisions for the long run, and just hash it out, look at all the options and say, okay, well, let's make a decision and go with this, this, and this for objects, for spaces, for different things. I mean, I would like to do WebGL for spaces, because what we are very good at is creating these multi-resolution virtual tours. I mean, they're not polygon-based virtual worlds, but they're far more realistic and they're much more interesting. You can do a lot more in them.
Yeah, definitely. Well, the reason why I'm saying this, if I was looking at NFTs or something like that for logistics, the discussion would have been completely different. But when you're talking about NFTs for clothing or for something that's a visual thing, then we have to lift that up, you know, one more notch. That was, you know, your question. I go back to the question, and maybe I'm misunderstanding the question. But you said, what would we ask or what would we talk about? And I would definitely bring a thing like that up, because I do think it's a very valid thing for the future.
Yeah, a
Especially in that
lot of our issues are not on blockchain.
yeah.
You know, look at metaverses. They're so great, but then you can DDoS their server, and now you can't go home. Or if it's on Solana, you just can't go home at all. Like this chain's down, your home is down. We need to have some better server infrastructure before we even attempt a proper metaverse, or it's just going to be like, oh no, my reality got DDoSed. Imagine that. Imagine like you try to go to 7-Eleven, but it's down.
Yeah.
That's not a metaverse then.
No, that
No,
already
that,
happens. You just have to go against the narrative of the government and DDoS your.
yeah, there's so many questions in there, because the thing is that what kind of peripherals are you using? Are you using VRs? Are you using your computer? Or are you using your phone? I mean, there's a lot of questions in there, but I know there's no no simple answer for it right now. But when you start addressing things like this, especially with bigger companies like Walmart, Sam's Club, IKEA, or whatever it is, you can't leave a question like that out.
Right.
Hmm.
So going back to the original question, I would try to reach other communities, right, Christopher? There is one that is called Innovation, and they are running stuff, and they connect with entrepreneurs on Canada, things like that. So maybe you can reach to them and try to set up like a Twitter space, or try to set up like a Miro board where everyone asynchronously can add something to that Miro board. And from there, you can link it to the idea scale page. That would be what I would use to try to generate that contribution. Otherwise, I am not too sure, right? There are only 2 weeks left. So it's possible that we're going to run out of time before we can able to organize anything.
Yeah. Anyways, it's not integral. It's just an opportunity that's come up that I think that I thought might be able to be leveraged a little bit.
I wouldn't mind going with you to Paris, though.
Oh, I know, right? It's going to be a short trip. It's not going to be a long one. I'm still just in the beginning stages of our integration with the global systems architecture for Louis Vuitton. So I'm actually reticent to even go at all, but looks like I have to. So.
All right, I have to run to get to this meeting though, guys. It was good talking to you for the time being, and I'll see you again next week. Yeah, most likely. Maybe the one after.
No worries. Perfect.
Bye, Jack.
Hey, Abraham.
Abraham's back, having that pizza.
You want to hear something crazy? I was walking around the other day. There's a cafe with a recording studio in it I wanted to check out. And there were a bunch of people crowded around these trucks in the middle of the street. They were like riot gear trucks, like fire hose, anti-riot people trucks.
Wow.
And there were a bunch of cameras around. It looked like they were filming a movie. And then there were like 8 guys with masks on a rooftop. And as I was walking by, they threw a Molotov cocktail on top of one of the riot trucks. And I was like, oh, that's cool. They're shooting a movie. But they weren't shooting a movie.
They're in the protest for their new constitution, right? Chile's
Where are you?
In that
Correct.
problem.
I'm in Philly.
You're in Philly?
No, Chile.
Oh, Chile. Okay.
Apparently, yeah, I'm in Barrio Yungue, this historic arts district. Apparently, there was this massive riot in 2018 that overthrew the government or some shit. And there are currently like protests and dancing and stuff to prepare for the voting for a new constitution.
Well, that's major.
Yeah.
It's very Mr. and Mrs. Smith around here.
Damn.
Seems to be riots a little bit everywhere right now.
True. This is true.
There's not exactly like police, like there's not exactly like the army, then the police, then the than the traffic cops, right? There's just military police, and they're everywhere.
Yeah. Chile has like in the middle of their army and their police, they have like a special force that they call gendarmes, and yes, they're like military police. They're really violent.
Yeah, I live in the hood, but I also live like 2 blocks away from the president, the literal president of Chile, not just the governor.
Interesting.
Right. Well, anyway, does anyone have any more topics they want to discuss?
Yeah, I'm meeting my developer soon. This thing I'm working on is supposed to be able to elevate any NFT project. So if you're thinking of if you can fit any time to get with me later, we can discuss about building a token gauge for you that does something that we can show off at CNFTCon.
When is that? When is CNFTCon?
October 20th,
yeah.
I think.
The 8th.
Oh, 8th. Wow.
It's like a month and a week.
So Abraham, I don't know if you hear this, but
sorry,
the last
in Las Vegas, just adding that.
Are you talking about the one in November?
No, CNFT is in Las Vegas this October.
Yeah, early October, right?
Yeah.
Abraham, just to fill you in on the last NFT DAO meeting that we were, I actually told the guys over there that I was actually a mentor for a startup thing this weekend, and I met a guy that is actually creating a movie. Well, he has one movie that's actually coming out now, and then a second one that is he's working on. I think it was Namibia or Nigeria. I can't remember exactly, but he is looking at some way of tokenizing or getting his movie in an NFT format, stuff like that. And I just saw your website. I think if you don't mind, I will actually go ahead and email that to him, and then talk some more with him. And if he's interested in it, I'll I hook up with you again, and we'll continue the discussion. What do you think?
Sounds good.
Yeah, I'll go over your website a little bit more, Abraham, and brainstorm myself and see what I can come up with, and I'll reach out to you. I think I have your email already last time. What is it, Abraham at talisman.io?
Do CMOS at talisman.io. I'll type it in.
Okay, thanks.
Well, other than that, I don't really have a heck of a lot.
And that's all I have.
Awesome. Right. Anyways, yeah, so I don't know if anyone here is also want to attend the Twitter space we're organizing with the NFT DAO and with Tangent, right? We're hoping that's going to be next week because time's growing short. Other than that, long term, there is also that hackathon we're planning for January. So anyone here also interested in that, please contact me so we can try to organize that. Ideally, we would conduct it in the US, right, Eric? It would be, I think, either Wyoming or it would be on Colorado. But we could also create satellite hackathons on other places. Like I want to create one here in South America attached to that one in January, right? Specifically in Spanish. But that could be a discussion for the coming weeks. Just keep it in mind for the future.
I agree with you. I think we should make it somehow, both in person and online, something. Because that way I can probably arrange something here in Northwest Arkansas where I am.
Well, wouldn't it make sense to open up a room in a metaverse and have it happen there? I mean, wouldn't that really be the way to do it?
I don't know. Hackathons tend to be more team-based, right? So I'm not sure if people will be open to collaborate cross border.
Mm-hmm.
Depends on the form of the hackathon, right? I mean, we can discuss that over time, right? But yeah, I guess that could be too. Well, the question will be
depending also on the topics that you want to do, what tracks you're going to do.
Yeah.
You know. So, but yeah, definitely come to the meetings and talk some more about that. Come with ideas.
You can always pay us to make a Zoom integration and have first mover advantage over the rest of the world by making an automatic rewarding system in Zoom, just saying.
Yeah, I mean, we can discuss that. I'll put it forward this Friday to the NFT DAO guys, and I'll tell you on Discord what do they think.
I like it. Honestly, I think that there's a lot of potential with Zoom. If you could integrate Zoom, the Zoom experience through, obviously with some NFT, but into a different type of group environment that isn't, a persistent world that's based on a 3D, paradigm, but one that's simply the paradigm that we're all comfortable with now already, that we've only in the past couple years become wide mainstream and universal almost, that almost everybody is like Zooming these days, whether it's Skype or what have you. But I mean, most people did the Skype except for, computer professionals for the most part for a long time. So now everybody does. And now take that into another level where it becomes a space that also has the power of Web3, whether that's the NFTs or an alternative to a 3D space to, have a meaningful experience. I like it.
Yeah, doesn't Zoom's parent company have a metaverse also? Like, don't they have some sort of VR workspace solution too?
I don't know. Yeah,
me neither. I haven't heard that.
But I really like the solution. Check the chats I sent earlier. This rather dry scope proposal that lists the specific API calls that I would plan on making, and it's really cool. The idea that the integration would be bi-directional, in the sense that you could automatically RSVP for a private event with a token, or you could get automatically minted attendance reward fungibles by attending things. And you'd be able to, there'd be a page where you could redeem those fungibles for things, perhaps like other events or a certification of completion or an ADA payout if you won a game of some kind.
Yeah. Yeah, that sounds great. Abraham, I just sent you an email, so you got my email address.
All right.
Okay then. So if that's all, I guess I'll close the call. See you guys next time.
Sounds good.
See you Friday.
Have a great week, everyone. See you later.
You too, guys. Bye-bye.
Cheers.